it's always wet. Crash.
Spa's like soccer, it's all about speed and balls.
It's all about the long, fast corners.
It's awesome.
It's the best circuit in the world. Flat out all the way.
I love this place.
Ah, yes, welcome to a treat for motor racing fans. The Spa-Francorchamps circuit at round 12 of the Formula One World Driving Championship, the Grand Prix of Belgium. Hello again, everyone. I'm Bob Varsha. You see the drivers making their parade. This all happened earlier this morning on what is a wet morning in Spa, but then again, what other kind is there? A former road circuit, and ironically, the resort town of Spa is nowhere near the circuit. It's over the hillside. The roads run between the villages of Stavelot and Malmedy and Francorchamps, and the corners just ring down through motor racing history. In the near foreground, double Olympic gold medalist Michael Johnson, a guest of the Ferrari team, has taken a lap of the track this morning. You would not believe how popular Michael Johnson is in this part of the world. With me once again, Eddie Cheever for Formula One coverage. Eddie, let's talk about some of the headlines of the weekend with our on-track buzz.
Well, we've got some great topics today. Obviously, McLaren offering Hill $10 million for the next season. If Hill wins the championship, that could be quite a change. I don't really think it'll debut. Ferrari has this new 7-speed gearbox. Very tricky for them. They haven't been that reliable this year. A very difficult place to do that on. Hill has a new clutch to see if he can get rid of those glitches he's had on his starts. I think that was a very good change and a very wise one from Williams. And of course, the changes for 1998 could be the tires. They're thinking of putting some threads in the tires to make them grip less, try to slow them down. They've got to do something to slow these cars down because they really are starting to go too fast again. And of course, a topic that we'll be talking about a lot today is a 1997 Concord Agreement. A lot of changes, a lot of very big changes that will change the future of Formula One in the future.
Let's hit some of the high points of the new agreement that governs Formula One. First of all of the teams that sign it commit to a 5-year obligation. In previous years, you didn't have to do that. You could simply enter the series. For those cars who have signed up, they must agree to provide 20-car grids at every race. So, in fact, Formula One is worried about not having enough cars out there. There is a non-competition clause. If you're in Formula One, you can't run any other open-wheel series, obviously directed at Indy cars, but what if you want to run a Formula 3000 team? We need only 80% of the signatory team's agreement to change the rules. In the past, unanimous agreement was needed, and that has been a problem in recent years. And there is a 17 rather than a 16 race schedule planned for the coming 5 years, which may mean that we see the Hungaroring back on next year's schedule. The reason for that, 2-day race weekends. Eliminate Friday entirely. 2 one-hour practice sessions Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon qualifying, and away we go. That'll have to be run by the promoters, but you can bet it will happen. New distribution of revenues, particularly TV money, estimated to be $50 million in the year to come. But a couple of the outlaw teams like Williams say that's not enough. For tires, you will have both a primary and an optional tire, but after the morning practice, you will have to commit to one compound or another and use that throughout the rest of the weekend. And there are important testing limits in the 1997 through 2001 schedule. Earlier in the weekend, James Allen went down through the paddock to get some comments from among those who have signed and those who have not.
Flavio, you have signed the new Concord Agreement. Why do you think that's the way to go?
I don't know. I think so. We are in a very democratic situation, and this Concord Agreement was discussed for about 2 years. I think so. 2 years is enough for me, sure, if it's good for the future of Formula One, if it's good for the team in general. I firmly believe it's very good for the future, it's very good for the team, is in the signature.
And what's the future for the 3 teams who haven't signed it at the moment?
You need to ask the 3 teams not signed yet. I think so. Nothing changed. Basically, we guarantee fees, and we have some guarantee to the federation, to racing, to never go racing other one in Syria. No, I believe the other 3 team is in better situation, if you see, because it's all the freedom. We don't have any more freedom, but we want to work close with FISA, with Mr. Eccleston, to create the best television show in the world for Formula One.
It could penalise you in one respect, and secondly, of course, it's going to be potentially a great saving of cost, which for any new team is a consideration. It remains to be seen whether each place that we go to are going to agree to have a minimum stay instead of some locations 4 or 5 days down to only 3 days. I'm not sure whether that's going to work for some of the racetracks in some of the cities or the principalities in some cases. As long as we get enough testing done, I don't think it's the end of the world. But for any new team, obviously more time on the track is an advantage.
Well, certainly it puts a new spin on things for Jackie Stewart as he hopes to come into Formula One. He will have to get the agreement of the signatory teams to be allowed to join in the agreement, and with it, pick up a very fat check indeed. We'll be back with more from Spa-Francorchamps in just a moment. High overhead, you see patches of sunshine over the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Bob Varsha and Eddie Cheever with you for round 12 of the Formula One World Championship. We are just moments away from the lights. First, let's get caught up with James Allen, talking with a rookie title contender, former IndyCar champ Jacques Villeneuve, in this edition of Off Track Buzz.
By anyone's standards, Jacques Villeneuve has made an absolutely incredible start to his Formula One career.
3 wins in the first season is always very pleasing. You know, it'd be better if the teammate didn't have as many points, but the key element to getting into F1 was Williams.
Is there anything you miss about the IndyCar world?
I would say it's more the fight you get on the racetrack, which lacks a little bit in Formula One, and there's more disparities from team to team, which is normal. Every team has to design his own car, so there will always be small differences.
Have you been watching the races?
Yeah, I've been watching most of them, and it's been pretty amazing to see how much they can get away with. I don't remember it being so aggressive last year.
You live in Monaco, which a lot of other racing drivers live there, but it must be kind of something of a goldfish bowl to live in.
Well, it is pretty small, but you never see anyone. The only one I see is David Coulthard, because we're friends, just because he's a genuinely nice guy. But that's about it. I don't see the other F1 drivers just at the airport when you leave for a race or something. You know, the thing is not to hang on with F1 with other drivers just because they're drivers. It's you hang out with someone just because he's a nice guy.
So your friends help you to keep a sense of perspective, which I guess must be really important.
Friends that were friends of yours just because you enjoy being together, not because you're in F1. It's funny the amount of so-called friends that, you know, called just after Indianapolis or this year and saying, oh, we used to be best friends, and why don't you call us anymore, and stuff like that, where, you know, you can't have 40 different best friends. you just have a few, and you hardly have enough time to see them anyway. But they're the important ones. They're the ones you can count on.
A lot of older drivers I've talked to suggested that maybe they gave up quite a big part of their youth by being so focused on the racing. Is that something you're trying to avoid, to be young when you are young?
Well, I'll always be a kid at heart. I love playing games, and I will always do. But I gave up a big part of, I would say mostly the university years, when you're just a group of people and you don't live at home anymore, but you're not by yourself either. You're with a bunch of people, and you end up doing stupid stuff.
What about skating, Jacques? You seem to do quite a lot of rollerblading, ice skating.
Yeah, that's something I really enjoy. When I was in school in Switzerland, I was up there for skiing, but we used to play a little bit hockey and skate a lot. I love computers, and it's very logical, numbers, and that's what I enjoyed at school as well. But music, I've always loved music. You just get into it. I try to play, but I don't play enough. There's not enough time, but I would really love to know how to play well.
What do you play?
The piano. I'm learning the guitar a little bit, but mostly the piano.
You obviously enjoy getting away from things. After Germany, you went off on holiday for a few days, and no one knew where you were. Where did you go?
Oh, I don't remember. That's too far away. Yeah, I like cutting off completely. You know, once racing is done, it's normal life that starts. You know, with girlfriend, friends, music, whatever you enjoy doing. A good meal, just normal life. But I'm not going to wake up the Monday after a race and just think racing and then go to bed dreaming about racing. That's what I'm doing, so I don't have to dream about it.
Jacques, it's been great talking to you. Best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. Best of luck indeed to Jacques Villeneuve this weekend. Hard to find a normal life as a Formula One driver. Eddie, let's talk about this majestic circuit now.
This is one of the most incredible circuits that you have in the Formula One season. You start the lap off at La Source, where you barrel down hill from first to sixth gear, and you go into Eau Rouge, the most difficult circuit, I would say. And the most difficult corner on this circuit is definitely this sixth gear corner. You shoot out of the corner like a bullet out of a gun down the back straight, downshift from 187 miles an hour to a third gear 90 mile an hour corner. Now you start the downhill section. There's a very fast left-hander that feeds into this series of S's. Now the circuit is flat. You downshift again to third gear, and it looks pretty twisty in the circuit here, but it actually is all flat in top gear. You go through that kink at 183 miles an hour. You exit that at 186. You're severe braking down to first gear, where you have to go through this chicane at 50 miles an hour. One of the easiest places to make a mistake on the circuit. Let's go to Mika Salo to see how he set his car up for this very particular Spa-Francorchamps circuit.
The setup for this week's race in Spa is quite a lot different than Hungary. It's a high-speed circuit, and that's why we have a lot less downforce here, front and rear. And also we have these wing bones to help the straight speed. Car is quite a lot stiffer. We have much heavier springs on it, and that helps us to run the car a lot lower also. It's not bumpy here at all, so we can keep it very low. Also, there's a couple of corners where we need the first gear, so we need to use all the gears during a lap. Normally the first gear is only for starts, but here we need it for driving, so we need to have quite a lot different gear ratios than anywhere else. That's how we set up the car for Spa.
All right, thank you, Mika. As you might have noticed, he referred to those one-piece suspension pieces unique to the Tyrrell team as wing bones. Let's take a look at the starting lineup for today's race. On the pole, Jacques Villeneuve, in his first visit to this 4.3-mile circuit, says he learned it with the help of a video game, and he only qualified 18th there. Outside the front row, the points leader, the only two men in the World Championship, Villeneuve and Damon Hill, will be on the front row. On row 2, Michael Schumacher, who had a big crash on Friday in his Ferrari and banged up his right leg. He'll be alongside David Coulthard, whose McLaren went 221 miles an hour on the straights at Germany. On row 3, Gerhard Berger, who celebrates his 37th birthday on Tuesday. He'll be in the Benetton alongside Mika Hakkinen, who says his McLaren has been very inconsistent, but he was second quick to Villeneuve in the morning warm-up. Row 4 will be Jean Alesi, whose days may be numbered with the Benetton Renault team, though they say they would like to keep him. He'll be alongside Martin Brundle. A new front wing has transformed the Jordan Peugeot. On row 5, Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari and Rubens Barrichello in the Jordan, who may have Indy cars in his future. On row 6, Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Johnny Herbert in an all-Sauber row. On row 7 will be the Tyrrell of Mika Salo and Olivier Panis in the Ligier Mugen Honda. On row 8, Pedro Denis in the second Ligier, who crashed in the warm-up, and Jos Verstappen, who spun in the footwork kart. On row 9, Ukio Katayama in the Tyrrell and Ricardo Rosset in the footwork. And on row 10, on his own, Pedro Lamy, whose Minardi teammate Giovanni Lavaggi did not qualify under the 107% rule. When Jacques Villeneuve knocked pole time down, Lavaggi was out. Rain in the final moments of qualifying hampered the last lap efforts that we've become used to in Formula One recently. But right now the cars are on the racetrack, warming engines and tires in anticipation of the start. Let's take a look at Friday morning's incident involving Michael Schumacher. He says he simply lost control of the car and went backwards into the tire barrier, 100 miles an hour in the Fagnes corner.
The bad thing about this accident here is he's backing almost straight into the back of that tire barrier, and that is not a good angle to go at. The interesting thing I read of his accident was he said, I just accelerated a little bit too quick. Well, that's kind of the main reason why you have a lot of accidents. Either you brake too late or you accelerate too quick, but that was not a good angle to go into, and Ferrari really need to have a good result.
Schumacher came out and complimented the new driver head protection, the head restraints, the bolsters around the driver's helmet, that he said prevented a whiplash. He did bang his right leg when it bounced up and broke the steering wheel in the Ferrari. They had to build up a new car around a completely new monocoque. You ride with Jacques Villeneuve. This is on the infield section, purpose-built racetrack, about to rejoin the Stavelot-Francorchamps road. Right here, the road coming in from the left, note the dotted line. You are back on a true European road circuit. Now, as mentioned, the World Driver Championship fight is down to two men. Only Damon Hill and Jacques Villeneuve have a mathematical shot at it. Villeneuve 17 points behind. No one will clinch the title in this race. The best Damon Hill could hope for is a victory to no points for Villeneuve, which would give him a 27-point lead with 3 races and 30 points still to be won. No points for pole, no points for leading laps or most laps. It's simply 10, 6, 4, 3, 2, and 1 on the points table.
Now, if you look on the screen, you can see there's a few wet spots under all the braking areas. And although the times that they'll be running will be quick, they have to be very careful not to brake on those wet spots. They have to choose the line they take with great care. And that's very difficult to do on the first lap of a race because everybody is dicing for position. So you'll see a lot of people here being particularly careful in the first few laps, especially when they hit into that hairpin 2 abreast.
Front stretch, the start-finish straightaway has been widened slightly during the offseason, as has the pit lane. Jacques Villeneuve uses a hand-mounted, hand-operated clutch so he can keep his foot on the brake. Notice that stream of water that's been coming across the racetrack. Villeneuve and Hill will try to start, and they will hit a wet patch immediately. But it is an uphill start. Damon Hill has a foot-operated clutch, so he has to operate accelerator, clutch, and brake only with his feet. Villeneuve would have the advantage there, I would think, Eddie.
Let's see how his new clutch works.
The field is away. Looks like a good start. Very slow right-hander coming up. Michael Schumacher makes a bid for second place. And Eddie Irvine is bumping wheels with someone. We've got cars flying in the air in La Source.
And it's always like that. You always try to go 2 abreast in that corner, and it is impossible. Somebody always leaves a bit. The Schumacher got away with a very fast start. And
like one of the Ligers, and I couldn't see the other car parked. Olivier Panis, one of the cars, the Monaco winner, is out of the race. I didn't see who the other driver was.
This is a very tricky corner to go into the first time. Villeneuve now obviously has a different mindset than Hill has. He is going to attack the whole weekend. Hill has got to defend himself. He's lost already 2 positions from the start in less than half, probably a mile and a half. Irvine obviously didn't have any problem when he bumped into that car.
I think we saw the safety car on the racetrack there, perhaps because of those 2 cars stopped at La Source. The crowd going absolutely mad. Some 40% of the tickets bought for this race were purchased by Germans who have come here hoping to see Michael Schumacher carry Ferrari to glory. Right now he is in second place. And Damon Hill, you're right, Eddie, lost all kinds of positions. He's back in 4th, still struggling with the clutch.
But Hill is a very, very consistent racing driver. He's now taken mind of what has happened. He saw that he lost his positions. He knows that he's with the best team in Grand Prix racing. He knows that he is probably the most consistent driver on the track. What he has to do now is not make any mistakes and just work his way up the field. But this is a very technical circuit, and McLaren is obviously getting quicker and quicker all the time, so we'll see how his run goes.
We saw Olivier Panis walking back to the Ligier garage dejectedly.
Very risky. You don't win the race on the first corner, but you sure as heck can lose it.
The other driver was Heinz-Harald Frentzen, so this German crowd will be disappointed to see him walking back to the Sauber garage. Coming around to complete the first lap, Jacques Villeneuve, who has been electric around this racetrack all weekend long.
His qualifying time is astonishing because normally it takes at least two races here to learn all the small nuances of this circuit. He says he's done it on an electronic game. Either he owns share in it, or I find it very hard to believe he's definitely underplaying his talent. That is a very sick Peugeot engine.
And he's walking in. The Jordan crew awaiting Rubens Barrichello. They tested hard during the 2 weeks since Hungary, trying to develop new aerodynamic tweaks. They admit the problems are with the chassis. They simply don't have enough grip.
This is one of the few circuits where you can actually get a tow from the car in front of you. A lot of circuits that they race Formula One cars are not really that fast. Here they have these very long sweeping corners, these long straightaways. So if Schumacher can stay close enough to Villeneuve, he can actually have an easier run than Villeneuve will because they'll pick up speed on the straightaways. Schumacher is going very quick, but I think it's a little bit to his advantage right now that the circuit is slippery in some areas. And we all know that Schumacher is definitely the rainmaster when it comes to Formula One. So in difficult circumstances like these, they really play into Schumacher's hand. We said earlier that he had that accident, he's hurt his leg, he had a problem with his leg. I can guarantee you right now he doesn't feel anything.
Now here's another look at the action in La Source. You notice the Sauber. Heinz-Harald Frentzen must have touched wheels with someone, bounding into the air, straight on into the tire wall. Johnny Herbert there as well. He evidently got it straightened out again. As our friends from Belgian TV flip through their various electronic effects. Damon Hill still in 4th. And he's got another McLaren and the 2 Benettons behind him. Jacques Villeneuve, of the top 8 starters, was the only one to start on scuffed C-compound Goodyears. Everybody else started on stickers. See if it has an effect. Right now, Villeneuve beginning to draw away just a little bit.
And Hill seems to be dropping back a bit from the McLaren. McLaren has been working very hard. They were very fast in the straightaway here, which is very important. So obviously that Mercedes engine is starting to work. But it's not really looking that good for Hill right now. He seems to be a little bit off his pace. Probably he's having a hard time getting comfortable. Might be angry after the start. It's very difficult to say, but he's got to start catching up if he wants to beat Villeneuve, much less the 2 cars that are ahead of him.
Now let's take another look at the start. And now we're hearing that both Saubers are out of the race.
Villeneuve gets off perfectly, goes through that wet patch. Hill loses some time, tries to defend his position, and which wasn't possible.
That's David Coulthard of the McLaren behind him. Somehow Coulthard got ahead of Hill. I think he did it on the Kemmel straightaway. Now you see the jockeying going on. Looks like Frentzen or Herbert dipped down inside one of the Jordans. Touched wheels. Of course, they bound in the air when rubber meets rubber. And straight on into the tires they went, taking Olivier Panis with him. There is the Ligier that Panis has abandoned.
I think that accident all started with Irvine. He had to change. He got hit from behind, started to change his angle, took up some room, and the 2 other cars behind really didn't have anywhere to go, so they ended up bumping each other and just started a chain reaction, and we all saw the final effect.
I'll reiterate once again, Jacques Villeneuve learned where this circuit goes using a computer game. And he said it was remarkably effective. If you watch Damon Hill, 17 points up in the championship. Hill could finish second to Villeneuve in the 4 remaining races of the season and still clinch the title. He can't do it by finishing 4th. Spa-Francorchamps for round 12 of the Formula One World Championship. Bob Varsha and Eddie Cheever with you at Belgium. Michael Schumacher very close to race leader Jacques Villeneuve. And David Coulthard, there's Damon Hill, Mika Hakkinen, and then the Benettons.
You can still see a few puffs of water where they go through those little damp areas on the circuit. I think Villeneuve has gained just a little bit, maybe at the most 20 feet from Schumacher.
There's the new widened start-finish straightaway. You notice new grandstands on the left. That's private property. It's all a part of the public roads that make up this circuit. I was under the impression that this had been closed up and made into a permanent racing facility, but that is not the case. Organizers say they're still a couple of years away from that. They're allowed to close it 10 weekends a year for racing and testing. They say that's not enough to make it profitable. They want more. Michael Schumacher now fast lap 154.9. Compare that with Villeneuve's qualifying performance at 150.574.
I don't really think we should be looking at the times right now because the circuit really isn't in perfect condition. We're going to have to wait probably 5 or 6 laps before all the line is dried off and they can start to use that little extra 5 or 6 inches that make all the difference on the track. We were talking about Spa earlier. It is Spa and Monte Carlo are the 2 circuits that ties Formula One to its very glorious past. This is just a tremendous circuit. Every year when I went to Spa, I was excited about it probably a month before I went there. And you can tell with these long sweeping corners and all the runoff room that they have, it is truly a beautiful, beautiful circuit. It reminds me a lot of an old golf course that was just made to the topography. It has all these changes, uphill, downhill, that it just makes it such a special place to drive.
It was once some 8 miles long, included a downhill run on a 2-lane road that you can drive these days in your streetcar. And the idea of guys going through there in Porsche 917s and such at 200 miles an hour absolutely raises the hair on the back of your neck. It's a road like this, plunging down to the legendary Mastic Kink.
This is fast here. This is fast. I mean, when you come out of a corner in Formula One at 183 miles an hour, believe me, you are moving. These are not like Indy cars that spend most of their life at above 220. These cars can race out of a first gear hairpin like you see here, and very shortly afterwards go up to such a fast speed. These are truly some incredible machines.
Berger and Hakkinen disputing 5th place. Gerhard Berger was very quick on Friday as they begin the long downhill plunge. On the left, you see the pits for the support races. One of the unique features of this track, Formula One has their own pit area and paddock. And the support races have their own pit area, so they can put their stuff in the garage and leave it there. They don't have to cart it in and out to make way for the Grand Prix racers.
Schumacher is really moving. I wouldn't have expected him to be this fast, him having had that accident and with the new 7-speed gearbox. I wouldn't have thought with full tanks they would have been as fast as they are. Villeneuve is definitely not shaking him. I don't think Villeneuve is spending a lot of time looking in his mirrors. He seems to be very focused on what he's doing. He has his job done, but the uniqueness of this circuit is that they have not tested here. Every other circuit that Villeneuve has gone to, and every other racing driver in Formula One before they got to Spa, they have gone and tested their time and time again. And what they do in the race is they just repeat to their best of their ability and the time's ability, everything they did in practice. Here, you've got to kind of make it up as you go.
There is Berger, 37 on Tuesday, but still with all of the elan and flair that he had when he began his driving career 12 years ago in Grand Prix action at the Oostenrijk ring in the old turbo Benetton, 1400 horsepower in qualifying trim.
That was quite some engine. I ran a similar engine in the Aeros, and when you had all the boost that you needed, it was like a rocket ship. There we got a very good example of how slippy the track still is. Schumacher is just sawing away at that steering wheel.
After that big crash on Friday, Schumacher had wrecked not only the monocoque of his car, but one of the only 3 7-speed gearboxes they brought here.
And look how the track changes. It just shoots you out of this. You can't even see the road. You come over the top of the hill, and it really is like you feel like you're a bullet coming out of a barrel of a gun, because you have barely enough time to check your line and make sure you get it right, and then you go on to this long back straightaway that makes all the difference in the world when you come out of it quickly.
Slow motion into the bus stop chicane, watching David Coulthard in the McLaren. A little wide on that entry, it looked like.
He's just trying to make it all the way around and not spin. That is definitely a question of damage control. Don't make it that bad. The track is still slippery. Obviously it rained and took a lot of rubber off the track, and the track really isn't that fast right now, and they've got to make sure they don't get offline. That's what you saw with Coulthard. He braked a little bit too deep. There was probably a little bit of dampness there, and when you hit one of those wet spots, when you're really asking for all that grip from the tires, it's just impossible to hold your line.
Rubens Barrichello in the Jordan is back on the racetrack after a 3-minute pit stop to repair crash damage. Word from the Sauber garage is that Heinz-Harald Frentzen is hanging his head, admitting that he was primarily responsible for that 3-car accident at the first corner that took out himself, Johnny Herbert, and Olivier Panis in the Ligier.
If Schumacher could just get 15 to 20 yards closer, he would get pulled by the draft of Villeneuve's car. And I think that's going to happen here, because Villeneuve might not be no, he gets by him right before the chicane. Let's see if Schumacher can do the same thing.
Called the bus stop chicane because that's what it is.
He got by him to braking. Barrichello moved out of the way. Now he's close enough that he can pick up in the draft. The only tricky thing he's going to have here is if he gets very, very close to Villeneuve going down Eau Rouge, he'll lose a little bit of downforce. So he's got to play it just right. And right now the track really isn't in perfect condition. Look how the topography of the track changes, and you just shoot up a hill here, and you really can't see the road. You actually, at a certain point, all you see is blue sky. And that's not really that nice when you're going at 180 miles an hour.
Listen to that engine rev. And hard on the brakes, down through the 7-speed box. This is the corner where he and Damon Hill went toe-to-toe, wheel-to-wheel. Schumacher eventually passed, running slick tires in a light drizzle, bounding across the grass to take the lead. Schumacher has won this race twice.
This is also the circuit where Nigel Mansell and Ayrton Senna had a great battle on the track, which Nigel Mansell decided to take it into the pits and have a semi-fist fight in the pits, which really isn't that gentlemanly or that British. But
1987. That's when Nigel and Ayrton proved that Formula One race drivers make terrible prize fighters.
Senna really wasn't interested in the off-track duties.
Since his debut here in 1991, Michael Schumacher has raced 81 times. He has scored points in 50 of those races. The other 31, he failed to finish. Welcome back. Jacques Villeneuve lighting up that right front Goodyear as he continues to battle with two-time defending world champion Michael Schumacher, laying down big streaks of Goodyear as he slides the Ferrari.
Schumacher definitely smells a win here. When you're running behind somebody, they start locking up the tires, that means they've gone a little bit over the top, and you've got to be careful. Villeneuve has got to be careful, because if he does that too often, that nice round tire becomes a very square tire, and it's no fun driving around a place like this with a square tire, because you're burning off a certain area of rubber on the tire. It is no longer round, and it is not fun, and it doesn't handle as well. Schumacher seems to be faster in a certain section of the track, and he loses most of it when he gets to that chicane that we just went through.
Now let's go back to the bus stop chicane on the previous lap and take a look at Villeneuve. Very different approach to stopping the Williams.
When that happens, you have to get your foot off the brake and get it back on again. I mean, it's very hard to take your foot off a brake when you see a corner coming at you at about 10 miles too fast, and you've got to slow it down. But it's almost like driving in the wet. You have to start your whole braking procedure all over again, because if you just get hard-headed about it and keep your foot on the brake, that tire will become an undrivable piece of equipment.
There you see the cars out of the race, and all of that happened at La Source, the very first corner of the first lap. Heinz-Harald Frentzen said he could not steer. The car went straight on. He took off his teammate and Olivier Panis. Now, there is something, it would appear, pumping from the back of Damon Hill's Williams Renault. That's happened several times through the bus stop chicane.
Hill is definitely not on. Doesn't seem to be on his best game. Either something is not right, or he's just being very conservative because he has a point lead. But this race definitely belongs so far to Villeneuve and Schumacher. Hill has not gotten past those cars, and he doesn't really seem to be that aggressive about trying to get it done either.
You just saw the graphics detailing the battle for the World Championship. Villeneuve and Hill. At this point, the French-Canadian definitely with the advantage.
This is a section of the track that Schumacher seems to have an advantage over Villeneuve. He just isn't quite close enough to get a gain down the straightaway.
Interesting comparison of the two. Villeneuve second fastest in the first intermediate section, and then quickest in qualifying in sections 2 and 3, while Schumacher was no better than 7th in the first section, 4th quick in the other two, and yet he is on terms with Villeneuve as you ride with Gerhard Berger. There's the Blanchimont left-handed sweep at about 185 miles an hour.
One of those corners where you set up and pay attention. I come out of that corner once when somebody had spun in front of me, and I couldn't do anything. I'm just lucky you went out of the way. Ooh.
Rocketing down to La Source, so named because of the water spring that runs underneath it. And then downhill to another corner named for water. Eau Rouge, red water. Of course, water is what this part of the world is all about. The town of Spa has given its name to similar medicinal resorts around the world. This is at Radillon, the top of the Eau Rouge Hill. You saw that road coming in from the right. For a couple of years, they diverted the race course, and there was a big chicane going up that hill while they remapped the corner, so to speak. But eventually, they brought back Eau Rouge in all of its glory. Right here is where the old course rockets away out the bottom of your screen down to the Masta Kink, and then it rejoins at the Stavelo corner. Steeply downhill here. See the McLaren in red and white at the top, pulling away a little bit from Gerhard Berger's Benetton. This is Pouhon, the double left-hander, taken at top speed. Tremendous G-forces through here. 3.5 Gs.
3.5 Gs. 3.5 Gs in a Grand Prix car is quite a lot. There we saw Ron Dennis with a very troubled look on his face. He is not used to being not up at the front, and you'd have to say that the 90s really belongs to the Williams, and I think McLaren is definitely on the way back. The problem with Formula One, if you're a little bit behind schedule, is that while you try to pick up, everybody else just doesn't just sit there and say, well, go ahead, see if you can gain something on us. The McLaren team was the team of the 80s, and it seems that Williams is the team of the 90s, and McLaren with Mercedes are making some very important decisions that might improve their position.
There's Flavio Briatore, who runs the Benetton team. There are strong rumors that he has bought up to a 50% interest in the Minardi team, which would be hard to believe given that those two teams were in court just 2 years ago.
That's Formula One for you. One week you have an enemy, the next week you have a friend. And I think with this Concord Agreement being changed, you're going to see a lot of political changing point of views as the season goes on.
On the back straightaway, Villeneuve and Schumacher. Then Coulthard running strongly in the Marlboro McLaren Mercedes. Then Damon Hill, Mika Hakkinen, and Gerhard Berger. And you see the gaps. Rumors swirling around the McLaren team. Will the 23-year association between Marlboro and McLaren, the oldest in Formula One, end this year? It's possible. This is one of the TWR Arrows cars in the pits. Jos Verstappen.
They seem to be having a lot of problem with the front of their car. Whenever you read or hear anything about that car, they always say that it understeers. Understeers when the front end of the car doesn't work properly. They've been doing a lot of testing with the new tire company that'll be coming into Formula One. And it seems strange that in the middle of the season they can't really seem to find a solution to something like that.
Well, they can't test on the tires they race on, which of course are Goodyear's. They're testing Bridgestone, so as a result, Goodyear will not sell them tires to test on. Jos Verstappen says they are not able to develop the car. They're looking ahead to 1997. The team wants Ricardo Rosset, the young Brazilian, to stay. It is not yet determined whether Jos Verstappen will remain with the team or what engine they'll be using.
Sounds like they have a lot of decisions to make.
Absolutely. So does McLaren. David Coulthard has a contract, but Mika Hakkinen's is up at the end of the year. As you mentioned, they would like to have Hakkinen back, but most recently Ron Dennis said, we'll take the best available driver. Lots of blue tire smoke in the air at the bus stop chicane. Someone locked him up. We have pit stops coming. We'll see if this is the reason for the smoke. Yes, it is. Once again, Jacques Villeneuve torturing those right side Goodyears.
Villeneuve is running every lap as if he was trying to qualify. He definitely started this race with one thing in mind: win.
We'll take this opportunity to break away as they plunge into Eau Rouge once again. Stand by for more live from Spa in Belgium. Big problems in Belgium. Someone has rearranged the tire barrier as Eddie Irvine, right on the rev limiter to hold the car to the mandatory 50-mile-an-hour speed limit, heads for the Ferrari pits. There is the corner. I believe that may be Ricardo Rosset's car. You see the driver lying at the bottom of the screen. He has pounded the Armco and the tire barrier in his TWR car. Now he's sitting up and climbing to his feet.
That was definitely a big accident. We didn't get to see it, but it was definitely a big accident. Well, the whole side of the car is just gone.
Excuse me, it is Verstappen and not Rosset. We saw Verstappen in the pits just a short while ago.
Now, the reason those fire marshals are not just emptying everything on the cars is they've been told that if you put too much of that, it makes a bit of a mess in the car, so they tried to avoid it. But they're just sitting there watching the car, make sure they don't have any flash fires. I wish we could see that in replay to see what happened.
Showing a caution flag at the start-finish line, but it's not from the flag stand. Yes, we will have a full course caution, and the safety car will be brought out. Here it comes. It's a rarity in Formula One to see the field brought to a safe speed behind a safety car, but you saw that Verstappen's Arrows was parked right next to the racetrack, right on the curb virtually. So they have to send the safety car out. And that will give everyone an opportunity for pit stops. And Michael Schumacher has already taken the opportunity. Ooh, what a horrible noise.
Yes, it just sounds like the engines are so sick. It's really not that good for an engine either. When you have that, you don't want to press it you don't want to accelerate too hard.
Ferrari team goes to work.
They're either limiting, to make that sound, either limiting the gas that gets in the engine, or they're cutting off one of the sparks. So it's
Schumacher sent on his way. We expect 2 pit stops for every car. And this is the kind of circuit where you have to hit your pit stop window perfectly.
If you get your pit stops wrong here, you're going to be in big trouble because the track is so long. And I'm amazed that everybody didn't come in.
There's Jos Verstappen, who looks a little woozy as he has walked to the medical vehicle.
Decelerating from whatever's probably 120 miles an hour to 0 in about 50 yards kind of makes your head spin.
Here's someone who overshot the bus stop chicane.
Looks like Hill.
Where is he going?
Oh, what
he missed
a
the
race
pit in.
he is having.
He missed the pit entrance.
Oh, my goodness.
Or else he bypassed it deliberately.
No, I don't think that was deliberate. Look, that was a very bad accident. We cannot see what happened, but there is nothing at all left on the left-hand side of the car. That was a lateral impact. The front nose of the car looks fine, but I mean, there really is nothing else. That is really a nasty accident. See, I wish they could pan back a little bit so we could see where it happened.
Exactly.
He slid across the track from the other side where he hit. I mean, what we're seeing here is just the end. That accident probably happened 200 yards earlier.
And you can see he missed the gravel trap as well. He hit the tires. I think this is down at the Fagnes corner, the same place Schumacher went in. I'm not sure, but there's no dotted line on the middle of the track, so it's not a part of the public road portion of the circuit.
That's one very sad-looking race car.
Man. Well, we saw him walk to the ambulance, so it would appear that Jos Verstappen is okay. And now the safety car has picked up race leader Jacques Villeneuve. Michael Schumacher is back out to take his place in line in the Ferrari, but he has pitted, and I would imagine we'll see Villeneuve duck in at the next opportunity.
But now Hill's going to be all the way back at the end of the field. I mean, and Hill's going in the pits now. Villeneuve misjudged when he should come into the pits.
And I think Hill did as well. You saw Hill going around. Villeneuve is in. I think if the pictures I'm seeing are correct, I think we saw Hill take a place at the back of the line by missing the pit in, and he wouldn't have the benefit of pitting, so things may be going awry for Damon Hill. Back out comes Jacques Villeneuve. As you see, Jos Verstappen being wheeled into the medical facilities.
The Williams team's made a horrible mistake when they should have come in on the pits. This is one of those things where an IndyCar team could kind of tell them how that yellow works.
Well, that's exactly the point.
When there's a yellow, you get in the pits quickly. That's where spotters come in so handy. Here's somebody that took off the front of their nose.
That's the other Ligier, Pedro Diniz.
That probably was from the beginning of the race.
Absolutely. And he's been running pretty much on a par with Olivier Panis recently. Came into the series as a driver with about a $10 million budget, which made him a pretty hot commodity. If not for his driving skills, certainly for his checkbook. See him going to work on the nose under the tutelage, I believe that's Gerard Decarouge at the front. Man who's been designing Formula One cars for several decades now.
In the 80s, Decarouge had a little notebook that he carried around with him since he was changing teams so quickly with all of his suspension pickup points and the aerodynamic balance. I think those days of an engineer doing all of the car are over. Now it's done by teamwork. You have experts in everything. It's kind of like your health plan. You don't have the same doctor that does your teeth and your broken bones.
You see Verstappen being walked away.
When he was in the ambulance, they had taken off his right shoe. I've gone through a few of those, and I can guarantee you he is not feeling very hot right now.
There's the car being hauled away. I believe this is on the Stavelot Road. You see the dotted line down the middle. But I believe it is short of the corner where the race cars re-enter, so they're moving the arrows. Boy, and that is comprehensive.
Looking at the violence of what happened to that car, I would say it almost could be in that fast kink at the end of the straightaway, because I mean, it takes a lot of inertia to do that much damage to a car. The whole back of the car, the engine is missing, the gearbox is missing. Well, I think we'll be able to see now where it happened.
Ride with David Coulthard, now the race leader. Yeah, there's the scene of the accident, I believe, just off on the left there. Flat toe wrecker over on the left, just where they re-enter the Stavelot Road.
It isn't that fast of a corner. That is a third gear corner. He just must have had everything go wrong that could have gone wrong.
Well, you make a good point, though, about how Formula One teams are very inexperienced at this business of using yellow flags strategically.
It took me a good year and a half, 2 years to understand it in the Indy cars. And if you get it wrong on an oval, you can lose a lap or pick up a lap. Obviously, that is not the case here, but everybody's getting their pit stop strategy. Nobody seems to have an idea of really what they're doing. They either come in later or earlier.
Here comes Damon Hill for his belated pit stop, although they may have sent him around again in order to get Villeneuve, the race leader, in and out first, which no doubt went straight up Damon Hill's nose.
The Williams' team, I think, is run as well as any Formula One team can be run. They do not have any preference between their drivers. They let the drivers get on with it. The only rule they have, of course, is we don't want the teammates running into each other. That would not be accepted. But Patrick Head said some very intelligent things, I thought, after the race in Hungary. They say it's silly to assume the two racing drivers that you've hired for their anger and for their capability, for their competitiveness, are not going to compete against each other. As long as you set the ground rules down, you'll have a very competitive team.
Here's something we haven't seen in a while. McLaren's running 1 and 2 on the racetrack. David Coulthard, with whom you ride, followed by Mika Hakkinen. 16 laps complete of 44 scheduled. We'll be back live to Spa. With race leader David Coulthard. We are under a full course yellow following a massive shunt involving the arrows of Jos Verstappen of the Netherlands. A single car accident that demolished the car. Verstappen wobbled away to an ambulance. It appears that he is okay. We would show you the accident if we had it, but our pictures are coming to us from Belgian TV, and apparently they did not get the crash.
Here we go. Here's the start.
Safety car moves straight on into the pit lane. McLaren's 1 and 2 as we get set for a restart. Everyone having pitted on laps 15 or 16 with 44 laps to run. And look at the Williams cars trying to come through the field. Oh my. That's Jacques Villeneuve going underneath one of the Benettons.
Now the driver in the Bennett, I think it was Berger. Berger saw him coming, so he pulled his braking as long as he could. Then he made a conscious decision to take an inside line, whereas Villeneuve just went in a little bit too deep, and you passed him again on the exit. That is a classical move, and both people knew what they were doing. They did it very cleanly. That was, I think, racing at its best.
3 Marlboro cars in a row, the 2 McLarens and the Ferrari. Now Villeneuve gets around. Actually, I believe that's Jean Alesi.
Yes, it's
Alesi in the Benetton. We've got a Jordan just behind, and then one of the Tyrrells. We have a whole new race here. There is Michael Schumacher. A moment ago, I talked about his history. 81 Grand Prix races, including this event, his debut with Eddie Jordan's team back in 1991. Remember those green 7-Up sponsored Jordans with the mustache front wing? He qualified at 7th, absolutely mesmerizing the Formula One community with his talent. And then the clutch let him down at the start. He never completed a lap. But he wound up at the next race 2 weeks later at Monza in a Benetton.
Everybody has to get a break, and that was his.
And in those 81 races since, he has scored points in 50 of them, and in 50 of those points, 42 of those 50 point scoring finishes, he has been on the podium in the top 3 positions. Of course, 20 victories. Somewhere in this group, as you watch Martin Brundle in the Jordan, we're looking for Damon Hill's Williams. He was very late to pit, so he is well back up the queue. Oh, and one of the Jordans has to straight line the chicane. He had Eddie Irvine and that Tyrrell alongside. Oh, I mean, he did go for the pits. Wonder if he made a stop during that yellow flag. Certainly, he must have.
Why would they want to come in now? I mean, goodness, this is...
I believe that was Rubens Barrichello. And here comes Damon Hill. And his 17-point lead in the championship suddenly looking very shaky. Yes, Barrichello is in.
No, they're checking for damage. Something is wrong. There would be no reason whatsoever to come in for a pit stop now. Obviously, he has something wrong with the car, and he came in to check it. But a good time to check it would have been during that yellow period. This yellow has really reshuffled the cards. It's going to take about 10 laps for you to get back to the positions they were in before. And every time you have to pass a car in this circuit, it's always very tricky business because the speeds are so high and there's very little room to do it on. Although it is a very wide track, there really aren't that many lines, so you really have to muscle your way around or risk running very close to the car in front of you around one of those fast corners. But when you do it, there's hardly any downforce whatsoever. So you have to make a very conscious decision how and where you're going to pass a car on this circuit.
See, Verstappen shown as pitting. His pit stop is permanent as far as this race goes. Word from the Arrows garage is that Verstappen was complaining of a sticking throttle, and that's why he pitted. Moments later went back on the racetrack, and you saw the results.
Sticking throttle. That's probably the biggest nightmare a racing driver can have, is a sticking throttle. That's even worse than having no brakes.
Here's a look at our top qualifiers and where they are running. Jacques Villeneuve is shuffled back to 4th. Damon Hill back to 11th and out of the points. Michael Schumacher is 3rd. David Coulthard leads. Gerhard Berger back in 8th. This should lead to some pretty good dicing as the afternoon wears on.
Now, at the beginning of the race, this group, the group of Schumacher and Villeneuve, were obviously quicker.
Spin.
Is it
in the chicane?
Berger, yes. As I said at the beginning of the race, it is the easiest place of all to spin, because if you have to use those curbs on the way into the corner, but if you overcook your braking just a little bit and the car gets a little bit loose on entry and you hit one of those on the exit, it's impossible to hold your line. And Berger obviously paid the price.
Flashing to you up the Kemmel straightaway, and it is up. It's slightly uphill to this corner. Lecombe, quick right and left, and then another right. And you begin the downhill plunge through Rivage and Pouhon down to the Stavelot Road. Michael Schumacher still deep in negotiation with Ferrari about 1998. His contract is up at the end of next season. And he says the only problem is money. Michael is rumored to be asking for $30 million. And I heard a story that former Fiat chairman Giovanni Agnelli said he's right to ask for that much money. He's had to work so hard on this car.
Yeah, that's a
nice negotiating leverage.
I like that. I wish that would happen when here we can see Berger's problem. Yeah. He almost made it.
Almost collected Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari as well.
Formula One is a world of almost. As long as you can get away with a lot of the almost, you'll be okay.
Well, a man who's gotten away with it more than anybody else in recent years is Michael Schumacher. He runs 3rd behind the McLarens. We'll be back to Spa-Francorchamps after this. Francorchamps, the Grand Prix of Belgium. Bob Varsha, Eddie Cheever with you. You'll see highlights of this event and all of the weekend in motorsport on RPM today and RPM tonight. Today at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific. And then tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. You'll see highlights of the great Winston Cup race at Bristol Motor Speedway last night. Rusty Wallace won, but that's just the beginning of the story, so check it out at 11 a.m. Eastern. There is Damon Hill running behind countryman Martin Brundle in the Jordan. On paper, Hill should be able to just blow Brundle off, but that's not the way it's been working.
This is a great tussle. 2 British drivers, they're both fighting position. Brundle has no reason in the world to get out of Hill's way. He's paid by Jordan to drive that car to the fastest that he can, and he's doing exactly that. Just a moment before, we saw Hill trying to get by him, and I think he expected a little bit of slack, but he didn't get any slack. He got some oomph in the wrong direction. But Hill is just not having a good race. I mean, everything is not going the way it should. If Hill wants to get by him at the end of this straightaway, he should have. Whoa, big wiggle on the entry there to Eau Rouge. Very tricky. Not a good place to have a wiggle. Now, that is going to take confidence out of him. It's going to take him about another lap and a half to get back where he was. He's frustrated because he can't get to where he wants to go. He knows the position that Villeneuve is in. He knows that he has to capitalize on his point lead at this race, and he hasn't done it. So he's just doesn't seem quite to have everything going in his direction today. And Brundle is driving magnificently.
Well, one thing Hill can comfort himself with is the fact that his teammate, Jacques Villeneuve, is only in 4th place. Here's another look at that twitch. Oh, my.
All he had to do was go maybe 2 millimeters. The steering was the other way, and we would have had what you call a tank slapper. A tank slapper at 170 miles an hour is not nice.
Oh, my, not on Eau Rouge.
I guess that's why he's paid those big bucks that he is, though, because he can control that with the best of them.
You see the infield kart circuit, and there's also a motocross course down there. Spa-Francorchamps sets itself up as a center of racing here in Europe. They've been racing these roads since the turn of the century, but it wasn't until the late 1920s that a man named Jules Détier decided that they would set up a road course on the streets. Race leader David Coulthard is in.
Why would they choose to pit now? Why would they not? They've only been out 6 laps since the yellow. Why wouldn't they have pitted when there was yellow on the track? It just doesn't make sense. I mean, you get tires and fuel for free. You don't lose any time whatsoever. We'll see now how they come out. I suspect they'll come out around 8th or 9th position, if not worse.
Long pit stop, a lot of fuel going on board. Perhaps David Coulthard's going to try to go the rest of the way on this stop.
And Ron Dennis is one of the best strategists in racing, and the success that McLaren have had over the past 10, 12 years is due mostly to Ron Dennis's great ability to call the shots. I really don't, I can't understand this one. Maybe he's got some secret card up his sleeve that we can't quite figure out.
Or perhaps desperate men do desperate things. There's a look at Mika Hakkinen, the new race leader. Hakkinen very troubled by his car this weekend. He's been outperformed by teammate David Coulthard. And as mentioned, Hakkinen's future with the McLaren team perhaps in shadow right now. There's Pedro Denise in the Ligier pit. Looks like maybe they're going to back him into the garage. For his part, Ron Dennis says, we will take the best driver available. Although we want Hakkinen back, it's not a done deal. As Denise goes backwards into the garage, we'll take another break and return to Belgium in just a moment. Live in Belgium with the sun still shining, but we are told that rain is on the way. And in this part of the Ardennes Mountains of eastern Belgium, you get rain a lot.
And Brundle is still in front of Hill.
Be sure to check out Destination Extreme presented by Slim Jim. The X Games on the road Monday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. As we get set for the next version of the X Games, the Winter X Games coming up in January. Don't miss that as well.
Hill is losing precious time.
Martin Brundle with Damon Hill behind him. Hill has got to get around Brundle and start making time on the road because there may not be a lot of pit stops in the future. More blue tire smoke back there in the chicane as Mika Hakkinen, now the race leader, formerly the race leader I should say, brings his McLaren in.
I think McLaren have done a great job this weekend. They've definitely come back. Their straight line speeds have become very quick the last 2 or 3 Grand Prix, and that makes a big difference. Obviously, when you have a new engine company like Mercedes that comes in and you change drivers and there's a little bit of confusion, it takes a while for all that to settle in. But I think the McLaren Mercedes package is definitely going to come back and do great things. I think what they're lacking right now is they need just a little bit more confidence in their drivers. They've been so used to the Sennas and the Prosts of this world. They're going to have to develop one of those 2 drivers they have to pick up that mantle of the team leader.
There are the top 4 in the running order. Schumacher leads. Jacques Villeneuve runs second. Jean Alesi runs third, and now Damon Hill. Now, a couple of laps ago, this battle went on. Brundle sort of hip-checked Hill. This time, Hill was giving him the 4-wheeled salute.
I don't think these 2 British gentlemen will be having tea and croissant together for quite some time. I see nothing wrong with what Brundle was doing. He was not moving. He was holding his line. Obviously, Hill believes that he should have moved out of the way. I don't think there's any reason for it at all. They're fighting for position. Hill finally got by him very aggressively. Now he has to start picking up spots in time, but most of all, he has to close the distance with the drivers ahead of him. He needs a big chunk of points here. The worst thing that could happen to him here is to finish behind maybe 3 or 4 spots behind Villeneuve, and Villeneuve picks up a win, because then Hill has to really start driving in a different mode than he likes to. He is a methodical workaholic in a race car. He's one of those guys that sets himself out of pace, and he keeps and maintains that pace all day. When you shuffle the cards for him, he doesn't seem to perform as well. But if you put him out in front and he can just run his own pace, he probably is the best in the business at doing that right now. But he doesn't seem to like a little bit of a damp track or falling back and having to pass cars. He's a racing driver that was developed by Williams, and before he even sat at the starting grid in a Williams, he had done thousands and thousands of miles in testing. You can tell he drives with that sort of precision. He's more of a precise run-by-myself race driver than let's get in the middle of it and get low down and nasty.
Which is consistent with his history as a test driver. Eddie Irvine brings the Ferrari in.
Now his car could not be in perfect condition because he started that chain reaction at the start of the race, and I don't see any marks on the nose of his car, so he probably did it with one of his front wheels. And all it takes is for you to bend the suspension just a little bit, and that changes the toes of the car and the balance. And around a circuit like this, where you have so many fast sweepers, anything in the front suspension that is not working to 100% makes the car very, very difficult, and you can't drive it on the edge.
Second stop for Eddie Irvine as you watch the running order after 25 laps. Schumacher, Villeneuve, Alesi, Salo, Hakkinen, and Hill. Good run for the Tyrrell. They're going through a deep drought. Tyrrell, one of those teams that has not signed the new Concord agreement. Neither have McLaren or Williams.
Now the position has reversed between Schumacher and Villeneuve. We have Villeneuve behind Schumacher, and let's see if he can, and he's quite a ways back, We'll see if he can reel him in. I think the Williams is still a faster car than the Ferrari is. And although a lot depends on the final result of this race for both of these men, I think Villeneuve will have an advantage. Ferrari needs a result. The Italians take their motor racing very seriously. At the last Grand Prix, I was in Italy, and I was watching it with some Italian friends of mine, and they were extremely unhappy because they made so much of the fact that Schumacher was going to be there that they were paying him half of the Italian gross national product to pay for his contract. So they expect to win. Italians expect to win, and they expect to win with Ferrari, and they expect to win with Schumacher, and they haven't done that much of it this year.
Flags wave on the hillside for Michael Schumacher. Not so much for that guy following him, Jacques Villeneuve. I need to correct something I said about Villeneuve a couple of races ago. I said that his 2 wins in 10 starts, compared with the greats of all time, certainly Farina, Fangio, Ascari, Tony Brooks, Bruce McLaren. I also included Emerson Fittipaldi, and I was incorrect in that. Emo won his 4th start, didn't win his 2nd victory until his 18th start over a span of 3 seasons. But now, with 3 wins in his first 12 starts, Villeneuve is in even more elite company. Tony Brooks matched that record. Certainly not a Formula One driver that springs to the lips of American fans. Farina and Fangio. Villeneuve. It's a very elite company indeed. Stay with us. We'll be back with more. Belgium, Bob Varsha along with Eddie Cheever. Glad to have you with us in this part of the world steeped in so much history. We want to remind you, on ESPN, you can see the NASCAR Craftsman Trucks Parts America 150 today at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. Dave Despain and Benny Parsons will be there at Watkins Glen, the Parts America 150 for Craftsman Trucks. Ride with Mika Hakkinen. The McLaren team tried an interesting trick. After a full course yellow flag, they brought their cars in, not during, but after that yellow flag, hoping for position on the racetrack, obviously. Now they have made their pit stops, lost positions, and trying to gain them back. Here is Mika Salo having a great run in the Tyrrell on the right and not giving an inch to Hakkinen. There's some background to that story. Both men are Finns, both named Mika, but they hardly speak to one another. They were great rivals in British Formula 3. One year they divided the series between them, basically winning all of the races. As you look back from the nose of the Tyrrell, you should know that Mika Hakkinen and Mika Salo are not the best of friends.
You're not paid in Formula One to win the popularity contest. You're paid to do the best job you can, and often you have to make decisions on keeping position that are not really considered very friendly. This is a great package. Tyrrell are really doing well with, what did Salo call his suspension? Wing bones?
Wing bones instead of wishbones.
Those wing bones seem to be going pretty good at Spa. I think that's definitely an interesting aerodynamic little gadget there in the car, and it's all those little things that make a difference, and they're right up there. This is probably the best result they've had this year.
Take a look at the McLaren running behind him when we get another look at it. The McLaren has aerodynamically shaped their suspension pieces, certainly the top wishbones.
Villeneuve has closed the gap to Schumacher, and if he is going to pass the German, he's going to have to do it very decisively and very quickly, because he's not somebody you want to sit and negotiate with trying to pass him. They're both very hard, and they both want this win for a different reason. Schumacher obviously wants it because Ferrari hasn't really done what they expected to do this year, and he's definitely a born winner, and Villeneuve needs it if he wants to keep his World Championship hopes alive. Hill has a grapple of cars ahead of him that are going to not give him an inch on the circuit. Here we get it right again, and look at that. Whoa. Just almost had the corner.
Getting back to my point about Villeneuve, his 3 victories in his first 12 starts at the Nürburgring, at Silverstone, and most recently at Hungary, matched Tony Brooks, who won Britain, Belgium, and Germany in 1957 and 58. Giuseppe Farina won 3 of his first 6 starts, in fact 4 of his first 8 back in 50 and 51. And the incomparable Juan Manuel Fangio won 5 of his first 9 Formula One starts, 6 of his first 13. And of course, that was a long time ago. All 3 of those drivers Jacques Villeneuve has joined the company of in the record books, raced in the 1950s when it was a very different form of the sport. But Villeneuve's rookie campaign, whether he wins the title or not, will have to go into the record books as one of the greatest ever.
He's done a great job, but everybody has to be reminded of the fact that he is, and Villeneuve himself says this, that he is driving for currently the best team in Formula One, in the best car, and he is doing a great job. But if he would have been in, let's say, a Jordan, he wouldn't have outshone the Williams. It's just, this is a technical sport. And the beauty about Formula One is that really the only limit that they have is the designer's ability to come up with a new idea, something different, something quicker. And it's a continuous evolution. There's never a break. Every time they come out, these cars are a little bit different. Very clean pass from Hill. He's now gone up another position.
Needs every one he can get. Mika Hakkinen, meanwhile, has gotten around Mika Salo into 4th place as Frank Williams studies the monitors, watching the same pictures you are.
What a pair Frank Williams and Patrick Head have been over the years. They really have divided their duties in half, and they've stayed together for so long. And in Formula One, where drivers and engineers and tire companies swap positions so often, it's so good to see a team that remains together for so long. I mean, they are almost one person, and a lot of their success is due to the fact that they've stayed consistently together, and they've built up a team with incredibly talented and ambitious people. And then to manage to hold all those Eagles together is not easy.
Michael Schumacher, the race leader, heads for the pits. That will put Jacques Villeneuve back out front. Damon Hill, meanwhile, you saw going around Mika Salo into 5th place, will now be elevated to 4th. John Alesi is now in from 3rd place, so the leaderboard will continue to shuffle. Last stop for Schumacher, we assume. Scuffed tires going on. And immediately getting a baptism of fire.
Yes, that's one way to warm him up, I guess.
Sharp right-hand corner. We've seen guys spin in that sharp right-hander to the pit out.
The pits.
There is Jacques Villeneuve already at the end of the Kemmel straightaway and heading into Lecombe. Here comes Mika Salo in the Tyrrell. Best run yet for Uncle Ken's team, this year anyway. A quarter of a century in the sport. And it would be tough to find a better way to spend an afternoon than talking with Ken Tyrrell.
No, listening to Ken Tyrrell. You wouldn't be doing very much talking.
Oh, Irvine is off in the chicane. He missed the entry. Now he's got the pit in on his right, but it appears
he stalled the engine.
He has stalled the Ferrari. With the tires steaming, here's the action.
This chicane will eat your lunch in a hurry.
It let go at the back, I believe. Smoke from the rear of the Ferrari, yes.
Yes, broken engine. I take that back.
So there's no question that the Irishman has retired once again. I believe that is the 8th consecutive retirement for Eddie Irvine. And that has to be a huge disappointment. He's got to run back, make sure the steering wheel's on and the gearbox is in neutral, or it could cost him a fortune. Excuse me, boys. I'm the one with the keys.
And I'm also the one that pays the fine.
We'll be back with more from Belgium in a moment. Back live in Belgium. Once again, the race leader is in the pits. This time it is Jacques Villeneuve.
Let's have a clean one.
Oh, right on the rev limiter coming back out. All 10 cylinders in that Renault working, it appears.
And some.
Oh, there he comes out just ahead of Michael Schumacher. Oh, my heart.
That was like a video game.
Oh,
here we go. We're right back to that same battle. Look at the difference. It's exactly in the same position when they started the pit stop dance between the Ferrari of Schumacher and the Williams of Villeneuve. That is incredible. Talk about both of them getting everything just right. They are exactly in the same position.
Mika Hakkinen runs 3rd, Schumacher 1st, and in many ways this is a home race for Michael Schumacher. His hometown of Kerpen in Germany is much closer to this racetrack than it is to the home of the German Grand Prix in Hockenheim.
All of the fans now watching this on ESPN can sit back and enjoy it, because this is going to be fun.
Well, Villeneuve got the better of Schumacher at the Nürburgring. Now Schumacher has an opportunity to return the favor.
Now what Villeneuve has to do is just get up behind him and start chipping away. And to chip away at somebody like Schumacher that has such a thick armor is not easy. But now it's going to come down to the machine. The human being has to move his way, almost just drive to the best of his ability, and it'll come down to who has the fastest car. And then if Villeneuve has a shot at him, he has to take it. But he has to take it keeping in mind that it's not an easy guy to pass.
Taking a chip out of Schumacher, you better bring a heck of a sharp chisel.
Yeah, or either that or take a lot of little bits out of him.
Perhaps two of the coolest customers in all of motorsports. A two-time world champion against the reigning IndyCar champion and Indy 500 winner.
But they're totally different, aren't they? They're totally different people. Schumacher is a German who's very precise, works out, I don't know, 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day, measures what he eats, measures the amount of time that he sleeps. Whereas Villeneuve is just a kind of happy, free spirit who is very focused on the racing car. But he takes life in a much easier, not so pressurized, not such a pressurized manner as Schumacher does. Now the reason that Schumacher has pulled out a little bit in front of Villeneuve now is that he was out on his tires 2 laps before Villeneuve did. And although they have been preheated, they preheat the tires in Formula 1 before they put them on the car. It takes a little bit of time for everything to get up to temperature.
There's the third place car of Hakkinen. But the battle is all up front. Let's take a look at our Haviland race recap now that we're deep into the second half of this event. The race leader is Schumacher, who has led since lap 33. 5 lead changes between 4 drivers, all of them on pit stops. Cars out of the race. Penny, Frentzen, and Herbert went out at the first corner. Jos Verstappen had a huge wreck, taking the whole left side off the car in the Fagnes corner, just below jumping back onto the Stavelot Road. Out of the race, Pedro Diniz, who apparently suffered gearbox problems and was pushed into the Ligier garage. So actually very little attrition, but around a 4.3-mile racetrack, the cars get strung out. It's hard to find a battle. We've got a dandy right here, however, as Jacques Villeneuve looks for his 4th victory in 13 Formula One starts. And there's the Williams crew at the ready in case they are needed. We anticipate they will not have to stop. Keep in mind, there is no sunshine, no shadows out there on the racetrack to speak of. There could be rain before this is over, and that would change everything.
That would change everything, and it would give Schumacher an advantage.
After his performance at Barcelona in the rain earlier this year, right now Damon Hill, the championship leader, runs in 5th, so he could pick up 2 points today. But Villeneuve runs 2nd. That is worth 6 points, and he would close up a little bit on Hill for the driving championship.
And when you have a car in front of you like Villeneuve has now, you almost drive off his cue. You brake a little bit later than he does. You turn it a little bit later than he does. So it's easier to follow in these conditions than to lead.
Hill pits for the second and last time, and he probably rused this moment. He needs every possible minute on the racetrack.
Very fast pit stop, 6.9, but obviously he didn't have to put that much fuel in the car.
Right now, the pit lane leaders are the Ferrari crew at the recent Hungarian Grand Prix. All 4 Ferrari pit stops for Verstappen, for Schumacher.
Yeah. What a pity. He was having such a great race. What a pity.
Back to my point about Ferrari. All 4 Ferrari pit stops were quicker than the next single pit stop by any team. I agree. What a horrible break for Martin Brundle, who could certainly use a good one. There is Schumacher with the race lead. No sign of Villeneuve. There he is. We'll take another timeout and return for more live from Belgium. Back live in Belgium, over the top of Radillon, onto the Kemmel straightaway. Not exactly straight, but you get the idea. Up to close to 190 miles an hour before getting hard on the brakes. Michael Schumacher leads Jacques Villeneuve. There's the gap back to the 3rd place McLaren.
It's very interesting to see Schumacher at the end of the straightaway move his head over, check his mirrors out for at least half a second to see how he's doing against Villeneuve. That's probably the only place he'll be looking in his mirrors, because the more time you spend looking in the mirrors, that's the less time that you spend looking at the road. And a professional and somebody who is as hard as Schumacher really doesn't care that much where the other car is, because if he wants to pass him, he's going to have to do it in a very aggressive manner. And he knows that, and he knows that Villeneuve knows it.
Well, good luck finding a place when you're going up on Schumacher. Gerhard Berger has reset fastest lap. As you watch Jacques Villeneuve, we want to remind you about Roller Hockey International, the championship game. Game 1, Wednesday, August. We are in August, aren't we? 28th. at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 4:30 p.m. Pacific on ESPN2. Onto the Stavelot Road. Oil pressure, we are told, was the problem with Martin Brundle's Peugeot. His race has been run. Another tough day for the Jordan team.
Oil pressure covers a variety of problems, doesn't it? Like a hole in the sump or a broken piston. That's like saying, hey, he was just sick. Bad blood pressure.
Yep, you have no oil pressure when it's all leaked out of a large hole somewhere.
Right.
Not that we're saying that's what happened. 8 laps remaining, but at 4 miles per, there's still a long way to go in this one. Flashing across one of the most familiar vistas in motorsports. I remember watching Mauro Baldi and Jan Lammers in a sports car race go through that corner side by side.
That's something that Tor Beloff tried to do once in a Porsche and did not make it around in that exact corner.
Just looking at a pit stop comparison. Villeneuve's 2 stops compared with those of Berger, Schumacher, and Damon Hill. And as you can see, well, pretty much a pretty even split there. I was about to say Schumacher and the Ferrari team got the better of it, but Damon Hill has actually spent the lowest total time in the pits on the second stop. Well, that honor went to Schumacher on the first stop. And keep in mind, that first one took place under a yellow flag brought out by Jos Verstappen's big wreck in the Arrows. There's Damon Hill, 7 victories on the year. The single season record is 9. Co-held by Nigel Mansell and Michael Schumacher. But more important to Damon Hill is that elusive first world championship
that he's almost had so many times.
Right now he has the best chance he has ever had. So watch Gerhard Berger in the Benetton. We'll be back with more from Belgium after this. Back live in Belgium, working the infield section of the Spa-Francorchamps Grand Prix circuit. Michael Schumacher leads Jacques Villeneuve. An Italian car, the Ferrari, out front, and Schumacher is slowly drawing away from Villeneuve. Interesting point about this race, as in the German Grand Prix a couple of races ago, for the first time since 1973, there are no Italian drivers in a Formula One Grand Prix.
It just kind of goes in spurts. There was a period where you had a lot of Italian drivers and you had a lot of Japanese drivers and you had a lot of French drivers. It just kind of goes in spurts, and right now I think the Italian economy is such that it doesn't allow the younger drivers the opportunity to do well in the lower categories, and they just kind of carry it on. Villeneuve, oh, there's a McLaren.
David Coulthard has obviously hit the tire barrier hard. Look at that white paint on the right front tire. Driver's right, that is.
That's a pity. They were having a really good weekend. That really is a pity.
And the tire treads on the grass show you exactly the trajectory into that tire wall.
He did really hit that hard.
Engineer Steve Hallam on the left. Along the McLaren wall, Davey Ryan, who runs the team.
Schumacher lost about 150 yards in less than 3 corners with Villeneuve, and he seemed to have lost it all in the entry to that one chicane. If you remember, just about 30 seconds ago, they came into the chicane, and Villeneuve and Schumacher is blocking his front tires up. So it looks like Villeneuve is starting to reel him in. But this is the part of the circuit where Schumacher always seems to be able to stretch his lead a little bit over Villeneuve. And Villeneuve then picks it up under braking and in the chicane and in the hairpin. 2 totally different cars, 2 totally different setups, and yet look how similar they are. This new 7-speed gearbox that the Ferrari has seems to be doing the trick. That gearbox allows you to build your engines a little bit different, and you can have a different torque band in the engine, and 1 extra gear allows you to get peak power. Here's the replay of Coulthard.
Saw the replay of him nosing it in on the exit of a corner.
He spun 2 times before he hit the wall, which is always good. The more you can spin before you hit something, the better off you're going to be, because you've obviously scrubbed away a lot of speed.
Which is one of the arguments that a lot of drivers use about not shrinking the size of Formula One tires or making them less grippy, is that when you lose control, you want all the rubber on the road you can possibly get to help you slow down.
Absolutely, but that kind of goes both ways, because if you have a lot of grip in the car, you get around the corner faster. If you have less grip, you get around it slower. What they have to do is try to find a way to make the braking zone more difficult. You have to work at it more. I don't know how they're going to do that. Every time they try to slow down the cars, the engineers are obviously a lot smarter than the people that make the rules, and that's why they're paid to be engineers, so they will always find a way to speed up the cars. Every racing category has that problem. But I would say of all the racing categories in the world, Formula One is the one that takes the greatest care to assure drivers' safety. And they're always in the forefront doing it. And I'm glad that the IRL is doing the same thing now. They're doing everything they can to make the driver's compartment as safe as they can. And you are never too safe, and it's never something that you can stop developing.
Saw Frank Williams looking on. His ultimate priority in each season is winning the Constructors' Championship. Williams has already done that. In fact, they have nearly tripled the points total of their nearest rival from Benetton. And now there is the matter of the Drivers' Championship. Michael Schumacher from Ferrari looking for his 21st career win. Schumacher and his manager, Willy Weber, never miss a marketing opportunity. They're trying to market a fragrance. And they approached several cosmetics companies, so the story goes. They wanted a fragrance with a nice citrus aroma to it, and they wanted traces of fuel and oil in the bottle so that you could see it.
Charming.
And get the connection with the Formula One world champion. Apparently all of the companies approached declined.
I wonder why.
Michael Schumacher is building a new home, we understand, on the Spanish island of Mallorca as you watch Frenchman Jean Todt, who runs the Ferrari team. He'll be neighbors with supermodel Claudia Schiffer and her boyfriend, magician David Copperfield. Life is tough as a Formula One driver. Now you know why he needs $30 million in his 1988 contract. 4 laps remaining here at Spa. The traction is going away from Michael Schumacher's Ferrari. Can Jacques Villeneuve take advantage? Stay with us. Welcome back live to the Ardennes Forest of Eastern Belgium in round 12 of the Formula One World Championship. We're in the closing laps. Michael Schumacher leads Jacques Villeneuve right there in your picture. As Villeneuve apparently can make no dent on Schumacher.
Schumacher is running at a blistering pace, and Villeneuve just does not seem to have the speed to keep up with him. It was strange because about 5 laps ago he picked up a lot of space in only 2 corners, and now Schumacher just seems to be pulling away. Berger again set the fastest lap. There's nothing more annoying than having the fastest car in a race and not to be able to win it, because it all comes down to either errors that you make or strategy that the team makes that is not correct. And that is always very frustrating to have the best car and not come away with a win. But it's good to see Berger bite back on pace, running as right up at the front with times as fast as he's doing.
Based on points, if they were to be awarded right now, Jacques Villeneuve would close to within 12 points of Damon Hill for the driving championship. V10 screaming away at the back of the Benetton. As you look at those woods, there are memorials to the valor and sacrifice exhibited during World War II. This part of Europe famed as the site of the Battle of the Bulge, not far from the pictures you're watching right now at Bastogne. It is emotional and inspiring to walk the fields and look at the massive star-shaped stone monument to the U.S. forces that fought here in December of 1944. And to see gray-haired men speaking in a dozen languages, showing their children and grandchildren around, pointing in every direction, talking about what it was like.
We all tend to forget what was done through those mountains. Schumacher got through some traffic in the perfect place to be able to do it, which is in the straightaway. And now Villeneuve, I think, is going to end up behind that car in a slower section of the track where he could lose up to 50 to 100 yards. And right now, with only, I think, 3 laps to go, 50 to 100 yards is a big distance. It's as much as 10 miles at the beginning of the race.
Gerhard Berger is logged in with fast lap.
That's 3 in a row.
Frank Williams looking on, impassive as always. There is Damon Hill, hoping to become the first second-generation Formula One world champion. And Gerhard Berger is eating him up.
On his tail.
Well, that's the last thing Damon Hill needs right now, is to give up a position to Gerhard Berger.
And since we're in contract time right now, and although Berger and Alesi are confirmed, they have 2-year contracts, Berger has every reason in the world to get ahead of that white and blue car ahead of him. And the fact that he's running for a championship, I don't think will have much effect on Berger.
To be sure, that $10 million offer from McLaren, if in fact it's true, will get Frank Williams' attention. But Williams has always been fairly straightforward about it. He will not pay spectacular driver salaries, and he knows he has the leverage of the best car in the business, the seat that everybody wants, the seat that enticed the late Ayrton Senna away from his longtime relationship with McLaren. And there have been so many times that the #1 plate has gone away from Williams because they were unwilling to pay the astronomical driver salaries that are current in Formula One. Nigel Mansell went on. Alain Prost moved on.
Ferrari and Schumacher have been perfect today. They have done everything right. The car is definitely very fast. I still believe the Williams is a quicker car than the Ferrari, but they have done a great job today. They turned up with a new gearbox, and to be able to run it your first time and score a win, and they're so close to it right now, I think is really tremendous. And when it just came down to pure speed in the part of the race where it counted the most, Schumacher ran away from Villeneuve. I don't know if Villeneuve had any problems or not, but it is a great result. Look at all those great German fans out there. Just wait till Ferrari turns up after this win at Monza.
Michael Schumacher has said, I want to bring the championship back to Ferrari for the first time since 1979, and I've done so much work on this car, I'd be an idiot. That was his word, to hand it over to another driver. You saw Jean Todt, the Frenchman, standing on the pit wall in the Ferrari garage. He has taken so much flack and so much heat from the press. It's hard to overstate how important Ferrari is to Italy. Dozens and dozens of reporters whose sole job is to follow Ferrari and write tens of thousands of words about them every day.
There's a whole industry that revolves around it. First you have the Pope, then you have Ferrari in Italy. It is a religion.
And sometimes you get both in the same garage at the same time. The must-stop chicane. One more corner for Michael Schumacher for his second victory as a Ferrari driver. They have been through such a terrible patch with so many retirements in recent races, but now the checkered flag waves and all is forgiven for now. But coming up will be the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, and things will be different. Boy, compare the emotion from the Ferrari pit wall to the Williams garage.
Frank doesn't even look that happy when he wins, though. He's just so concentrated on what's happening, and he's a very cold person when it comes to racing.
Hill and Berger fighting over the last 2 places in the points. Right to the line, they will fight, and Hill will take 5th and lose 5 points off his championship lead.
There you go. Yes. That's about 15 of them right there. Now he has gone from being the village idiot to the greatest team manager organizer in the world.
He is a genius. Of course he is.
Oh, yes, it's unbelievable.
Well, it helps to have the genius of Michael Schumacher with you. And right now, Ferrari has it. He has won, and we'll be back live to Belgium in just a moment.
A great win.
Welcome back live to Belgium. As you watch the cars that failed to complete the race, the podium ceremony is underway. Michael Schumacher atop the podium. Second place, Jacques Villeneuve. Third place, Mika Hakkinen. Jean Alesi finishing 4th, followed by Damon Hill and Gerhard Berger. And I need to correct my math. Villeneuve now 13 points behind Hill, not 12. Look at Mika Hakkinen. He has to be happy with that McLaren drive.
Absolutely. That was a great drive. He stayed out of trouble. I think McLaren are on their way back. What a tremendous effort from Schumacher and Ferrari. I think that's probably the best performance they've had to date technically because it wasn't raining. There weren't any big problems. They just outran everybody. Look at the look on Villeneuve's face. He doesn't look that happy. This is an opportunity that he lost. Hill had a problem. He should have capitalized a little bit more, but I mean, that is the first time he came to Spa. He got the pole position. He ran very hard the whole race, outdrove his teammate, made good decisions, just didn't quite have the speed. We don't really know what happened. He might have had a problem, but it was a great race.
And the key moment in the race had to be that yellow flag brought out by Jos Verstappen's crash. Some guys used the brake to make their pit stops. Some, frankly, weren't on top of their tactics.
I'm not really quite sure how people were working that out in their head because we don't really know when they were planning to come in on. They might have changed their strategy, but I think when you have a yellow flag, you've got to kind of think on your tippy toes and you got to make the decision quickly. And I believe that the Williams did the right decision and some teams did not. Schumacher is definitely the best racing car driver now in Formula One. And I think the man who is right behind him is Villeneuve. And it was an unfortunate weekend for Hill. He's a perfect racing driver when he is in the lead, but he does not really seem to like that battle so much. There's always, throughout time, there always have been drivers that had certain qualities that would be good in certain places. Peterson was great on a difficult circuit in the wet. Schumacher seems to be good at everything. Senna was good at everything. Even Prost wasn't good at everything. Prost, look at this, there we go. Now you think those two gentlemen have worked hard and they believe in what they're doing? Those are two very focused human beings. Now that is when a team works. When that happens, you have a team that works. Never has Todt criticized Schumacher, nor has Schumacher criticized him. These are two people that have one common goal. When that happens in a team and you have the assets and you have the energy to go after a goal like they have a Ferrari, that is a team that is going to win the World Championship.
And there is a picture that will be seen around the world by motor racing enthusiasts. Michael Johnson presented the team trophy to Jean Todt, who jumped up there, and you could almost tell what he was saying.
This is about human beings. Racing is about human beings. These are very talented people. They put a lot on stake. Todt has been given a very difficult role to make Ferrari win races. He has the best racing driver and supposedly the biggest budget, and there you go. If they work together and they get organized and they focus on what they're doing, they will win races again.
I hope Michael Johnson had the good sense to get out of the way. No, I think the other Michael, who's a world champion, might have nicked him with that champagne spray.
And Todt is having a very expensive shower.
Absolutely. Let me have it. His week has just been made so much easier.
What a great race. What a great circuit. And I'm so glad to see Ferrari up on top again.
Well, we still have the press conference to come. We'd like to show you part of that as Michael Johnson meets the press. Now he's asking his fellow podium finishers back up. Another good photo op.
Excellent.
We'll break away and be back to recap things and say so long from Spa-Francorchamps in France. Stand by, plenty more still to come. Where Michael Schumacher has picked up his second victory of his Ferrari career in 1996. Here are the unofficial results. Schumacher over Jacques Villeneuve, who closes up to within 13 points of Damon Hill, who finished 5th for the World Championship. Good runs for Hakkinen, Alesi, and Berger as well. Benetton coming on stream as the season begins to wind to a close. There you see the other classified finishers. We'll give you a look at the Drivers' Championship following 12 of the 16 races. Damon Hill leads Jacques Villeneuve, still the only two men with a shot at the World Championship, and that one will probably go down to the final event of the year in Suzuka, Japan in October. In the Constructors' Championship, it was all decided at the Hungarian Grand Prix 2 weeks ago. Williams-Renault takes their 8th, tying them with Ferrari, tops on the all-time list.
Having done that in so few years.
True, Ferrari has been a part of the World Championship in its modern era since it began in 1951. Williams basically has won their 8 titles since 1980.
Now this picture tells it all, doesn't it? How many hours do you think those two gentlemen have spent trying to find the way to bring Ferrari back to the winner's podium?
Let's go to the interview room and hear from our top 3 finishers.
Career win. You must be delighted today.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be difficult to find words for that. I mean, 1.2 seconds behind qualifying, and then in dry circumstance to do what we have done today, I wouldn't have bet again like in Spain 1 penny on it that it would happen. Especially in the middle of the race, while I was behind Mika, I was pushing quite hard, going hard over the curbs, and I bent my steering, and I had a big play in the steering, and that was quite funny through Rouge. And I was close to stop the race because I was a little bit frightening through this high-speed corner, made to lose my steering. But then I spoke to the pits and they said, it's going to be a ride, and all of that together to win this race, I mean, it's just Hollywood life, I would say.
You made a good start and managed to overtake Damon. Had you expected to do that at the beginning?
With us, it's obviously not so sure whether we're going to do good starts or not. because the system sometimes works quite well, or not. The system actually is fine. It's the clutch. We have some variation in the clutch, which the last 2 races we have had good clutches, but it's a matter of luck, to be honest, to have this or not. And it worked perfect today. I wasn't expecting that, but I knew obviously Damon had some difficulties through the last races in starting. I knew Jack didn't, but I almost caught Jack as well. But obviously on the outside it's difficult to pass by in the first corner, so I had to pull back.
Now, when the safety car came out, you were very clever and made a pit stop immediately. What was the decision behind that? Did you hear from the pits, or was it your decision to go in?
No, to be honest, it was the decision of the fuel tank, because they would have been empty if I would continue it for another lap. It was our strategy to come in anyway at that lap, and it just worked perfect.
And any problems from your accident on Friday? Did your knee give you any problem at all?
No, we did some good therapy through the weekend, and the swollen bit went almost back completely. I'm just not able to run proper, but otherwise in the car is no problem.
Well done.
That's fine, yeah.
Jack, well, you must be pleased with the second position, because your lead with Damon, the Damon's lead now goes down to 13 points. But do you think you could have won today? I mean,
well, we had our car was slightly quicker than Michael's, but when the yellow came out, we were trying to communicate through the radio to come in the pits, but we didn't understand each other, so I stayed out, and that was a big factor in the race today. But then it was close all the way to the end with Michael.
What did you feel when you came out of the pits after your second stop and saw Michael shooting by? Did you think that's it, or did you think you could get back?
Well, I thought on the second set of tires the car was very good for 2 or 3 laps, and then it started to push like a pig, and it did that with every set of tires. So I pushed really hard on the first laps, and it was good with Michael, but then I just lost my front end, and I just couldn't turn the corners anymore.
Because towards the end we saw you slowing down a little bit. Was that for that reason, or were you just being careful to make sure you got the points at the end there?
Well, I was hearing some noise in the engine anyway, so I preferred to just lay back a little bit.
Mika, we last saw you in Silverstone when you were third, and you were second here in '94. You seem to have had a good hard race today.
Yeah, I don't want this to become a habit to be third, but I'm very pleased indeed. Yeah, I think it went really well end of the day. Starting from 6 and coming third was absolutely more what I expected, to be honest.
You had quite a hard fight in the middle of the race with Mika Salo. How did that go?
Yeah, it was a bit strange because he didn't really give me the room, even it was pretty clear I was quicker than him, but I guess he didn't see me, and things like that happens in a race.
Are you feeling more confident?
Well, we're going to have to break away. You always learn something interesting when you talk with the drivers. We'll be back. Look at some of the highlights of this Belgian Grand Prix. Certainly a stirring performance by Michael Schumacher. Not so fortunate for his Ferrari teammate Eddie Irvine. Schumacher driving with a cracked rib from a soccer playing accident several weeks ago and a steering problem. Nevertheless, managed to subdue Jacques Villeneuve to take the victory. Eddie, your final thoughts?
It's going to be a very exciting weekend in Monza. I think Ferrari have really made a lot of progress here. This is a very technical circuit, and they did a great job. The World Championship is still open, and we're going to see how well Damon Hill holds up to pressure. So it's going to be a great end of the championship.
Well, it's been good working with you again. Be sure to be with us for the next round of the World Championship from Monza, the Italian Grand Prix, in 2 weeks' time. I'm Bob Varsha for Eddie Cheever. Thanks for being with us. See you in a couple of weeks. So long for now from Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium.